Imagine if the entire monkey family, Garp, Dragon, and Luffy, all decided to become Marines. The whole vibe and structure of the Navy would change drastically. Dragon, who was originally the leader of the Revolutionary Army fighting against the world government, would now be on their side, possibly as one of the strongest officers, maybe even an admiral. Especially since the original story revealed that Dragon was once a member of the Marines before he left because he couldn't find the kind of justice he believed in. Alright then, let's jump right into it. What would happen if the monkey family all served in the Navy? In this scenario, if Dragon never left, he might have tried to change the system from the inside. Alongside Garp, his father and a legendary Marine hero who's known for being a bit rebellious toward higher-ups, they'd become an influential duo within the Navy, more critical of the world government's orders. Luffy, who in the original story became a pirate because of Shanks' influence and being raised in a bandit village by his grandpa's arrangement, would now grow up as a full-on Marine kid from the start. His personality might resemble Garp's, laid back, goofy, but insanely strong and heroic, just without the iconic straw hat from Shanks. As a young Marine, Luffy would likely rise in fame quickly thanks to his habit of challenging and taking down powerful pirates. The entry of Dragon and Luffy into the ranks of the Marines would definitely boost the Navy's power significantly, but it would also stir up new internal dynamics. The world government might be pleased at first, seeing a major threat like Dragon now on their side, but deep down, they'd be anxious about having a tiger in their own backyard. All three monkeys are known for their free spirit and strong sense of justice, so the Celestial Dragons could easily feel the heat from the courage of this Monkey D trio. Imagine it. Dragon and Garp wouldn't just sit back and ignore the tyranny of the Celestial Dragons. We already saw a glimpse of this in the original story when Smoker immediately recognized Dragon when he appeared in Logtown, a clear sign that Dragon used to be a highly respected figure in the Navy, which means his influence among the ranks would still run deep. It's not impossible that this situation sparks the rise of internal factions within the Navy, a moral justice camp led by Garp and Dragon, possibly supported by figures like Smoker or Fujitora, versus the absolute justice camp under Akainu and the hardliner loyalists of the world government. From there, new alliances could emerge. Idealist Marines under Dragon might secretly collaborate with unexpected allies, perhaps former pirates or oppressed kingdoms, to rein in the corrupt grip of the world government. Meanwhile, the conservative faction could end up forming shady alliances with opportunistic pirates just to counter the growing influence of the monkey family within the Navy. So, what about the major events of the world? A lot of them would definitely turn out differently. Take the Ohara tragedy, for example. It might have had a completely different outcome. If Dragon was still in the Marines at the time, he could have defied the Buster Call orders and tried to save the scholars. Maybe Nico Robin wouldn't have had to spend 20 years on the run alone, because Dragon, or even Garp, might have hidden and protected her as a living witness of forbidden knowledge. Another big one? The Marineford War might never have happened. If Luffy had listened to Garp and joined the Navy, there's a chance that Ace might have been swayed too, although that's a bit of a stretch. But if that actually happened, Ace wouldn't have become a division commander under Whitebeard, which means no execution of Ace and no war triggered by it. Whitebeard could have retired in peace without having to storm Marine HQ. However, if we go with the scenario where Ace still becomes a pirate while Luffy is already a Marine, then Marineford would have turned into a massive emotional conflict. Luffy would probably recklessly try to save Ace from the inside, even if it meant going against orders, just like Garp's internal struggle in the original story, where he nearly let Luffy rescue Ace. The point is, if 3 generations of the Monkey D family served in the same Navy, the balance of power in the One Piece world would shift completely. The Marines would become significantly stronger and more influential, while the Revolutionary Army might never even exist. But at the same time, ideological clashes within the so-called good side would create some seriously interesting internal conflict. The Monkey D family could push the Marines toward a more just and humane direction from the inside, or they could trigger major division if they end up clashing with the interests of a corrupt government. The world might be safer from pirate threats thanks to Luffy actively hunting them down, but the political intrigue between the world government, the Navy, and other factions would only grow more intense. This alternate scenario would offer a completely different history, less about tragic drama, more focused on action and political shifts, where the trio of Garp, Dragon, and Luffy work side by side to enforce their own version of justice within the same institution. In my opinion, the world of One Piece under this scenario would be more stable on the surface, but more tense underneath. Stable because the Marines would be dealing with pirate threats far earlier and more effectively, meaning fewer lives lost, more peace maintained. Monkey D. Luffy wouldn't be seen as a wild pirate, but rather a young marine hero carrying on Garp's legendary legacy. Garp would probably feel proud that his dream finally came true. He successfully shaped a successor from his own bloodline to protect justice. Meanwhile, Dragon, who in the original timeline is the government's greatest threat, might instead fight in his own way to build a cleaner, more just navy, realizing his revolutionary ideals through reform rather than rebellion. If Luffy were on the side of the Marines, I truly believe his free spirit would still find a way to stand up against injustice, no matter what form it takes. Whether it's evil pirates, tyrannical Yonko, or a corrupt government, Luffy and his family would always side with what they believe is right. The only difference is, this time, they'd be carrying the banner of marine justice while doing it. That said, from a storytelling perspective, the wild adventure vibe that defines One Piece would definitely tone down, since Luffy wouldn't be sailing freely or gathering a quirky pirate crew. But it's easy to imagine Oda-sensei writing it from a different angle. Maybe Luffy would form a kind of marine unit that feels like a crew of its own. For example, his close allies might include Kobe, Helmeppo, Smoker, and Tashigi, creating a dynamic where even other young Marines look up to him with admiration. Politically speaking, having 3 generations of Monkey D in the Navy could actually be the world government's long-term nightmare. Why? Because all of them carry the will of D, something the Celestial Dragons deeply fear. Even if they initially serve the government by taking down pirates, it's very possible that, in the end, they're the ones who will bring an end to the world government's oppression from the inside. It's not a stretch to think that Joy Boy, the one foretold by Toki to bring dawn to the world and open Wano's borders, could still be Luffy, only this time fulfilling that destiny as a Marine. So that's the breakdown of what could happen if the Monkey family were part of the Marines. Of course, there are plenty more details that could shift, but what do you think? What events do you believe would change if all 3 of them became Marines?